there's a kickoff. Welcome back. We don't have a really full agenda. So if you have something and you want to show it, now is absolutely the time. And I know that Damian has something, and I also told him 5 minutes ago that he absolutely wants to show it. So
And I do appreciate the heads up on that.
yeah, no, and
Save my
really,
so to say.
normally Dominic and I spend a bit more time thinking about organizing the guests before, but well, this is coming about as expected as your launch was coming. So
Perfect.
I hope you
All right.
I hope you forgive me for pulling you up spontaneously.
Well, I'm glad I chose to attend today, because
Yeah.
that would have been embarrassing if you called me out and I wasn't here for it. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, hold on.
Oh, I think you have to change the settings.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Bear with me.
See you in a minute.
It's happening to every first-time presenter, and you will have to quit Discord in order to share.
All right, I will be back momentarily.
Yep. So the good thing, now that we know that Damian's computer is set up, is that we can pull him in for these things officially. So I'm wondering, maybe we should do some dig into my data session where we do live analytics on RUM data. Maybe that could be interesting if we find somebody to volunteer.
I'm
Volunteer
happy to
their
share the
data,
RUM
or-
data. Oh, sorry. Go.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm happy to go through the RUM data we have and share it and go through any of that as well. We've been really looking at the RUM data as well. We've never had anything quite like it as well. I mean, it'd be great if it could grow and have a few more things on it. But yeah, I absolutely love the RUM data.
Perfect. Yep. So Damian, I didn't know if you heard that. I had another spontaneous idea, which is to have one of these sessions where we basically have audience members call in and ask us questions about their RUM data, and you and I do live coding on BigQuery, and try to answer the questions with the data that we have.
Yep, I love the freestyle idea.
So
quite honestly, I do that in another support-focused call that our team has. It's
right.
It's kind of like a game. It's fun.
Yep.
All right, shall I share my screen here?
Yes.
If it lets me.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
If I click watch.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. All right. So RUM data is something that we've been collecting for edge delivery sites for well over a year. I suppose you could say since the very beginning. We've been collecting data, and we've also had an API that people can use in order to query the data. So it's basically an HTTP API. You pass in some parameters, you get back a bunch of JSON. That approach, you could say, is very developer oriented. It has a lot of data, but it's not as presentable, right? It's just JSON data.
Damian, we can see Discord window. I'm not sure if you wanted to share this one or another one.
No, you're not seeing a RUM dashboard?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me.
Discord UI, and that it presents you the Discord window to share, and you want like another tab at the top of the modal that says like entire screen or something along those lines.
Screens, not applications. Yeah. Very good. That's perfect. Perfect. All right. Now I hope you can see it.
Yeah, now we also can see your RUM dashboard.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks.
All right. First timer here. All right, so this is an application that we've been working on since last year. It's gone through several iterations. It had mostly been oriented toward, let's say, Adobe employees as we were just getting our feet wet. But we, as of, I forget, Lars, within the last month, I believe, we have a proper domain.
Yep.
Data.aem.live. I have already entered the URL that I want to see data for and the domain key. If you were to visit this site for the first time, you'll be presented basically with what looks like a login form. You enter your domain, you enter your domain key. I'll talk a little bit more about the domain key in a minute here. But you enter that and you're brought to our dashboard. So we have a few, options here. By default, we look at the last 30 days of RUM traffic. The default view also has some of the core web vitals that we all know are so important to Edge delivery. We can see the estimated traffic over that time frame. And then, of course, it's ranked by popularity of pages. So we can see which pages that we think our users are hitting, and we can see how they're performing.
Right. And it's a bit embarrassing, I have to say, that we have a 2.55 second LCP on the homepage.
Yep, that's a cue for us to research, basically.
Yeah.
These numbers, by the way, the green, the yellow, the red, these are based on the thresholds that Google defines as part of their health score. And the numbers that you're looking at here are the 75th percentile number across all the collections. So we have here this page views column, 6,500. What that really means is we have 65 samples of this home URL over the past month. In general, we collected a sampling ratio of 1 out of every 100 page views. And then so we multiply our number of samples times the sampling rate, and that gives us our estimated page views. Yeah. So among those 65 page views, what this is saying is that what's 75% of 65? Like 40 something? I don't know, let's say 48. 48 of them were less than 2.5 seconds for LCP, and the balance were greater than 2.5 seconds, basically.
Yeah.
So something to look into.
Yep.
We can go ahead, Lars.
It's also interesting to see that the bot updated page is so slow, and I think if you open that, it's going to be even more surprising. Because it's this page. So, right. So the thing is that there's nothing on this page that could make it slow. So one of the things that we could look into is, so when do you see this? When do you see this page? You see this page once you've gone through the AEM code sync, basically the GitHub app setup, and my guess is that because the GitHub app setup is basically just sending a redirect. The LCP here includes the time that it takes to do the redirect. So that could be an interesting thing for us to investigate. And the reason why it's so slow is because because it's so terribly slow. If this would be a regular web page, is that you don't run the GitHub code sync setup very often, which means we are dealing here with the Lambda function that has a cold start, and none of the caching tricks that we have are going to work. But Yeah. But also,
Okay.
also interesting to see. Also interesting to see, just as a rough ratio, right? The ratio that we have between bot updated and bot setup, which is together, right? Bot setup and bot updated is together about 900. And then if we scroll up, we see the Sidekick tool page. I think it's one of the, no, that's the Sidekick documentation. That one's less interesting.
Oh.
But the tool Sidekick, I think it's the second or third.
I see it here. Yes.
Right, so that's 900. So you can see that the Sidekick setup and the bot setup together are almost equally popular, which is a bit surprising. And Dredden, you mentioned we are looking at sample data with RUM, which means you always have a certain sampling error. The more traffic you have, the more sampling, or the smaller the sampling error gets percentage-wise. For my website, the sampling error is quite significant. For Chris's website, the sampling error is completely insignificant, and so it would be for most of your customer websites, right? So we're looking at a bit of an uncommon page here. Yeah.
That's a good point. So this is a relatively lower traffic site at the
Right.
moment. I just am working with a customer that started with RUM tracking within the last week, and they, I have to coach them to say, wait a little while,
Right.
let the traffic build up, let our RUM collections build
Yep.
up before you start putting too much
Yep.
too much stock in what we show here.
Yep.
So at the end, we would need some tags or something like that to categorize the different pages to be able to filter out some stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot of possibilities here. So we have collected tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of data points over the last year. And the way I look at RUM, it is a matter of it's a decision that we have to make, how we want to slice and dice all of those unique data points in a way that makes the most sense for the most people. I'm someone that really enjoys writing these ad hoc queries, trying to figure out, answer off the wall questions from different people that, maybe it's not repeatable, or maybe it's not something that any other person or customer would have any interest in. But yeah, to your point, definitely there's enhancements that we could make here. It's a matter of figuring out what's going to be valuable for the largest audience.
And in my experience, the most valuable thing that you can have, the most valuable thing that you can do with data is to have a conversation, right? To have a conversation with the data, and especially data that requires interpretation, especially data that you want to use to drive decisions, right? And when I look at this, the number one thing that I would say is, Lars, we need to look at the homepage, and I actually have a suspect for the largest contentful paint that we have on the homepage. So I'm going to look into this without uttering my suspicion yet, because if we can fix it, I think that would be a nice learning for all of us. So
Agreed.
One part I can already mention, which is we do have a redirect going from aem.live to /home, and I think there's the little yellow box that we see here is making an argument for take that redirect away, and which essentially is a trade-off between performance and SEO, and I'm saying SEO be damned. All that counts is on-site performance, and I think Dominic, we're going to have this conversation in two weeks, right, with the SEO team. So they're going to tell me the opposite. They're going to say performance is only relevant because it helps SEO. Looking forward to that, but that's something that we can tweak. And I know, Chris, you had your discussions about SEO and having or not having redirects in the past. So I think, yep. Let's see
All
how
right.
much we're going to warm that up.
I have a couple other
I
features.
just wanted to second the. Oh, sorry, Chris. Just quickly, I just wanted to second the filtering as well. That was funny enough. Something I think I spoke to Lars or Dominic about as well, is to have the filtering as well, because we used this dashboard ourselves, and we actually found out that the blogs on our site had a CLS issue, and went through that as well. And so yeah, this dashboard has been really beneficial for us as well. But yeah, if we could filter on path or filter on type, that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
That would make it.
Oh, the thing is,
When you say type, what does that mean exactly?
So sometimes we have different page templates in AEM. And what you could have done, obviously, in AEM is define the page template. And we're actually passing it through to the RUM data as well. So again, I think that is there somewhere. But again, that might be more custom for us. So I'm just saying that's what we do. So we have a page template in AEM that passes through to the metadata in Crosswalk, back to Franklin, back to the RUM data.
Okay.
I see.
So one thing that you can do is if we would want to look just at the documentation pages, right? I think then you can put this into the URL field here. So we would have aem.live/docs, and that way we would just get the documentation pages, right? So the thing that is a bit harder to get in there is how do we get things like page metadata into RUM, right? And there are basically two ways how I've been thinking about this. Number one is to essentially have a fundamental feature in the engine that would allow us to merge two tables, right? That would allow us to merge the humongous RUM data table with millions of entries with, for instance, your query index. And that could then allow us to do things, right, where you can say, I want to show only pages that have this particular tag or that have a particular word in the title. And I've always wanted to build this, and I haven't found a customer for this. So so you might want, Dave, you might want to ping me either on Slack or on Discord, so I can look into this. The other thing is that for some of the queries, we have the ability to add additional filters, right? So one of the ideas here would be to have an additional filter that simply says, I'm going to look at sessions that, or not sessions. We don't have sessions. We only have page views, right? I'm going to look at page views that also send the, let's say, template checkpoint with the particular source value, right? And my assumption would be, Dave, that the way that you're sending it would be something like this, right? You're sending out the view template or template checkpoint, and then you have the template name and the source where it should go, and that way you could drill down and the main use case for this would be having the ability to, for instance, drill down to visitors that are coming from Google, right? So you can see if visitors who are coming from Google versus visitors who are coming direct, if they have a significantly different browsing behavior, right? And again, most of this is very coarse-grained. Again, this depends on the presence of the right instrumentation, which means it's really not going to be a universal feature. But I think, right, you've seen the APIs that we're calling in the back end. And that's the nice thing about this, right? Is if you have the sophistication to ask questions of that degree, then you typically also have the sophistication to make a curl request to an HTTP endpoint and read either the JSON or take this CSV.
Hey, thanks, Lars. And in actual fact, I feel a bit embarrassed, but I never actually tried adding the /docs like you did. And that in turn will actually answer some of my question anyway.
Okay,
I didn't
perfect.
realize you could do that. I
Yeah,
never even
you
thought
can do
about
that.
trying it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well,
Yep. And just as a segue, so Lars spoke about checkpoints. Checkpoints are the basis for the second view that we have here, which is 404. We do have a checkpoint named 404. I'm happy to report that aem.live
at least in
did
the
not collect
documentation, can you
any-
look at the overall page? And
Oh, good point. Good point.
oh,
So still, there are no
we're so good.
sampled 404s.
Yep.
So it's a good thing to keep an eye on. We do have some sites that have, more than 0.
Right.
But you can always, if I wanted to check if we've always been good or
Exactly.
if
Yeah, that's a good.
being good is only a more recent trait of ours, we could go back a year.
Right. Oh, I think we're going to have 404s. What's this?
Not sampled here.
Perfect. Okay. I would have.
But anyway,
I would
easy.
have guessed that we have 404s because, right, we did not just a redesign of the entire site with essentially completely new code base and new content structure, but also switched the domains. And in my experience, this is never going. It's always going close to 100% smoothly, and never exactly 100% smoothly. So, that's the second best thing I've seen today. So,
and I'm going to show you this page views chart as well. So we had a dip in traffic around Christmas.
Yep.
Like a lot of customers' sites, weekends are going to have lower traffic, and then we get more traffic during the week. So there's this sort of natural, cycle. But that's that. And then last thing I want to share here is this share link. What this does is it creates a link that you can then email to other people or however you want to share it. It includes in the query string basically these parameters. So that way, if you want to show something to your boss, you can just generate a quick link, share it to them. They don't have to go through the fuss of, dealing with a login screen or asking what's a domain key. They can just look. Speaking of domain key, so I said earlier in the call I would get back to that. So this is basically our way of determining that you're authorized to see data for the domain that you're looking for. Right now, if you are a customer, there's no self-service way to get a domain key. You ask for one.
Let's say there's no convenient way for non-technical customers, right? You can absolutely get one for free if you just know how to add a text record to your DNS settings. And
sure.
Right, yeah. The thing is, most of us do know that, but many of us don't have the permissions to do that on the production domain, so that restricts the user basis a bit.
The easiest way to get a domain key, I believe most, hopefully all of our customers have Slack channels.
Right.
And we have an alias in Slack called DataDesk, one word, @DataDesk. And you can just request one, and one of us will get back to you directly.
Yep. And you can, of course,
Is
also
it
use...
correct?
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, sorry, Chris, just confirm. When we originally set out, we said we had to be really careful with the domain key. But I think, Chris, you just said it's just to read the data. So there's no risk in us sharing that domain key around the company?
So couple points. So this is Damian, not Chris.
Sorry, Damian.
Yep. No, you're good. There are different types of domain keys. So some domain keys are going to be limited to a single domain, and those are safe and free to share with anyone at a customer site. we have domain keys that are meant for only Adobe employees that have more broad access, right? They can see basically any domain. And those should not be shared. We also have domain keys that can create other domain keys, and those should definitely not be shared. So there's different types of domain keys, I would say. But if we're talking about a read-only key for a single domain, absolutely, those are meant to be shared with customers. And by the way, hopefully in the next week or two, we are going to launch a tool that allows any Adobe employee to create a key on behalf of their customer or any domain. So the idea here is that we don't, we get away from this centralized process where only a couple people can create domain keys. We want to make it more, easier and faster for, at least for any Adobe employee to create keys. Eventually, it'll be any customer to create keys for themselves, but one step at a time.
You said we just need to mention something in the Slack channel, and can you?
Do you see here where my mouse is in the top left at Data Desk?
Yeah.
This is who you mention in Slack, and that will send us an alert.
Let's see if it works. I will figure out now.
Okay. That is everything I have to show today, Lars. I don't know if
no, that looks excellent.
Back to you.
Thanks for sharing.
My pleasure. Let's see.
Sorry, can I ask one other question as well, Damian? I've never got the page views chart to work. Is there, again, our site is relatively new and quickly growing. Do you think it could just be due to traffic volume? I've never seen the chart load.
Why don't you ping me on Slack after this call, and I can research that.
Thank you.
Yep.
As you can see, I'm having camera trouble. The good camera is frozen, so you have to look at the slightly inferior camera.
But you still look good.
I'm trying my best, but it takes considerable investment in hardware to keep up the appearance. So So the other thing that I want to point out, right? We have this Data Desk alias that anyone in our Slack can use at any time, and we really like answering these questions and digging in the data with you, right? Because typically they come. No customer is ever asking these questions just for fun, right? Because there's always an agenda behind that, and we want to help you further that agenda, right? Whether it's making your site faster, whether it's organizing your content better, whether it's swapping out tools, and data is a great entry point into having these discussions.
Yep, and we do have a team that is extending this dashboard. I mean, it's a very recent launch. We have a product manager assigned, so there will be more coming over time.
Excellent. Damian, who's the product manager?
Shweta Dua.
Okay, got it. Good.
One thing, I kind of want to double down on what you said, Lars, especially about that. I think that Sidekick page, that Sidekick landing page is really illustrative of what many developers will see in the wild. We as developers get this immediate cause and effect of having Lighthouse in our pull requests, and you might get a 100 Lighthouse, and then 28 days later you find out, oh, my core web vitals are not very good. Right. And while this is sort of it's not common, but it does happen where your Lighthouse looks great. Obviously there's been absolutely 0 PRs merged into the AEM website that would be, below 100.
Yeah.
But here we are with like these higher numbers. Core Web, a lot of that is dependent on what you're doing to your visitors. And also, the test URLs that you're putting in your PRs. If you're building a feature that like has got integrations or whatever, and you put in URLs that maybe are the sort of happy path that don't really test those other integrations, then maybe you get that lighthouse score on your PR merges, but then 28 days later you have a problem on your hands.
Right.
So it's really important, like as you're building these features, think about these things. We see this stuff all the time on adobe.com. And Core Web Vitals, it's 3 metrics to Lighthouse is 6. Somebody might need to fact check me on that. But LCP is an overlap, is one of the features that is an overlap. So do be aware and don't be shocked if you see those things be slightly different. We've even seen Core Web Vitals be better than Lighthouse in some really random cases. But I think, Lars, like you said, it's like this is an opportunity to go look at and see like, okay, you kind of have to put your thinking hat on and say like, okay, why would Lighthouse be great, but my real visitors are not? One thing that we see in the wild on adobe.com is, especially if you're non-US, you probably see this a ton, which is our little geo-routing modal that's like, hey, you went to the US site and you're in Germany. Google thinks that is our LCP. And so like you as a German visitor, you of course see that. And so you as a real user, that's signaled as your LCP.
I think that's your LCP. And as a German visitor who speaks passable English, I think that pop-up is terribly annoying.
Broke up for me.
Right. So, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You broke up for me.
I was saying, right, I'm a German visitor and I see this as your LCP, right? Because
exactly.
It's absolutely getting in the way with your content. And in particular in content that is in English that I'm capable of understanding in the first place. So
and it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate reality. Like we are a US based company. Our source content is US. You can imagine that all of while we have these amazing localization tools, our best content is US centric.
Yeah.
So if you are an international visitor and you're like, I want the very best content on adobe.com, you're kind of stuck going there.
Right.
And so like this is where like SEO and things get intertwined, because if we had perfect SEO or perfect localization tools, our best content would be everywhere. And so when you search for Photoshop, the search results will be DE Photoshop, not US Photoshop. And so then when you click on that DE Photoshop, because it ranked really high in SEO and it's in your preferred language, again, assuming that we have the best content in your preferred language. Yep. So it's all a really fascinating, I think it shows the push and pull between like Core Web Vitals, SEO, real user, experience. Yeah. And Damian, the dashboard is fantastic. I'm already starting to try and push people to it.
Great.
So
wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are almost out of time. So I was not normally I would ask, are there other fun things that you've been working on since we've last seen each other? And I would take Chris out of the equation because I think we're probably going to have an update on that sometime. But if anyone here had fun things to do, AM related or not, I was trying to find the right word. Now is a great time to share.
I have one. It's kind of related.
Cool.
So usually when we talk about RUM, and this Discord, chat, we're talking about edge delivery. RUM is actually going to be coming to AEM as a cloud service as well.
Excellent
So
point. Yeah.
later this year, well, we've actually already started with some, you could call it an early adopter program. So we do have some customers that are actively collecting RUM data. It's going to go to everyone eventually, and this data dashboard is going to work for cloud service as well.
Yep.
Probably the numbers won't be as green, and that's something we'll have to reconcile, but
Yep.
it is coming.
But maybe it gives even more visibility that people are checking the numbers even more.
Yep.
If there is a dashboard for cloud service, or maybe it's a good reason to look into edge delivery if you see it in cloud service.
Yep.
Yep,
We
absolutely.
do have a customization with the coloring schema. We'll make it more green.
Well, that's
There
the
we
thing
go.
is, like, if you're not measuring, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so, like, the first step is to measure. So huge, I like cloud service having this is going to be amazing.
Yeah. And Dejan, I really appreciate your immediate goalpost moving suggestions. I've been thinking we could have a Google scale of quality and then a relaxed scale of quality, and then the relaxed scale of quality we just multiply everything with 10 and let it crawl. So yeah. But,
relatively green.
yeah,
right?
relatively green. No, and so the funny thing about these Google numbers is, and I don't know if you know this, is if you are in the, if you use the PSI tool, then you can click on the Lighthouse score and it will tell you what metrics the Lighthouse score is made of, and that will link you to a Lighthouse score calculator where you can do these if-then analysis, right? Where you can say, but if my LCP was half a second better, what would my Lighthouse score be? And that tool in turn links to a repository that explains the rationale behind the good, meh, and bad cutoffs that Google has. And as everything Googleable, right? This was probably done by math PhDs, so it's super fancy. But the basic idea is following. That for each of these metrics, you have an engagement curve, and that engagement curve is going something like this, right? So it's a sigmoid curve, right? Which means you have two interesting points in a sigmoid curve, right? The one is where it starts, where things start falling off, right? And one way of looking at this, where things start falling off, is to look at the well, you're getting it mirrored, right? Is to look at this way, right? When it doesn't make sense pushing the number to be smaller anymore, because you're not getting any measurable results in terms of business out of this. Right? This is what Google calls the point of diminishing returns. And then you have the other thing, which is where you've already thrown the baby out with the bathwater, right? Where it just doesn't matter what you're doing anymore, because your site is already too slow. And the interesting thing is that this point where your metrics are not getting much worse anymore is actually what Google says is the cutoff between green and yellow. It's not between yellow and red, right? Where you would think, oh no, red is the really bad part, but yellow is the really bad part. Yellow is the point where it actually stops mattering to most visitors. And this is, I think, really fascinating for two reasons, right? Because one, you would think, oh yeah, somebody at Google made up these numbers. And the reality is, yes, somebody made up these numbers based on a billion data points, and based on some really, really heavy math. And number two, right, you think yellow means good enough, don't care about it. And actually yellow means you're in trouble. You better start fixing, right? Red basically means you're almost beyond help. and you need to re-engineer your site. But that's what yellow means. So I
Mir ist in
was
den Brunnen gefallen, ne?
exactly, yeah. I was surprised by that when I saw it, and yeah. So okay, Dominic, I think we've wrapped it up. Let's quickly talk about the agenda for the next coming weeks. We have a Tuesday meeting next week.
Yes, but I think we are still trying to ramp it up.
We're still in ramp up mode. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to try to get launches.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe since October, that we can talk about great
Exactly.
launches. That would be great. The other thing we already ramped up, and maybe you already put it in your calendar, we will have SEO, as Lars already said. It will be on the 1st of February, and we will have Cedric and Amanda here. It's also around aem.com. And of course, we also will have Chris here and Lars. And so I think we'll have a great discussion.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we are going to do a demo as promised in the Christmas session of Crosswalk. The reason why we're doing it later is because there will be a release, as they said, by the end of January. So we have a little bit more to show in February. That's why these sessions are then in February. Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm really looking forward to these. Looking forward to seeing you, and most of all to hearing from you. So, so thanks everyone for dialing in today, and I'm looking forward to a great 2024 with you and with AEM and with a bunch of big launches and fast sites. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.